We wish you a Merry Vlogmas, we wish you a Merry Vlogmas, we wish you a Merry Vlogmas and a Happy New Year. Yay! The elves have been having a party. We've got Elsa and Jingle appear to have pulled a cracker. Mistletoe is hanging from the lamp with a cracker hat. Oh, look at Holly.
There's magic.
I don't know.
There's magic behind mistletoe.
Oh, I know magic. I think Holly maybe wanted a cracker. And they've written party. Right, we don't have a galaxy one. Thanks to the elves.
That is mold pear and cranberry.
Okay. I can confirm though, I did check the advent calendar. I looked at all the spaces and there were no reindeer spaces. Galaxy, next year better have a reindeer. That's great, thank you very much.
Second one.
Do you want to do the puppies? Oh no, yesterday's one, that's right.
That was yesterday.
That was yesterday's, today's one now.
Warm apple.
Warm apple, I like that one.
Smells like normal candles.
Yeah, the tea lights really don't smell that much, to be honest, compared to the proper candles. Right, puppies? Okay.
Dance.
Good girl, yay! 3 dances! Clever girl.
Yeah.
Well done, look at that tail.
Then more. Then
Well caught, Ranach.
And
Then Molly's next bit.
do it again.
She'll get dizzy. Good catch. Look at her ears. Oh, here you go. Right, Ranach's ones.
Right. This is another method. That's it.
Good boy. Well done. Down.
Then.
Good boy. Take it nice. Can't throw it when he's lying down. Poor boy. You too lazy this morning? Not want it just now?
Is that on?
No, put it up for later. Get it after.
Number 4.
Hello, wee girl. Hello. 4 days to go.
4 days to go. 4 days to Santa.
Hi everyone, welcome to our Crazy Life Scotland and Vlogmas Day 21. It's getting ever closer to the big day. I hope you're all doing well. Just a little quick note about yesterday's Vlogmas. I'm sorry that it was a bit depressing and not very Christmassy. But it was just the kind of day that I had, and I was going to pretend to be all happy and put something else up, and then I thought, no, because stress eating is a big part of my life, or it has been, and I think it always will be. It'll always be there in the back of my mind, and I'm sure that a lot of other people do have the same problem, and at this time of year it can be triggered very, very easily. So I just wanted to put it out there, and I'm sorry if you didn't enjoy it very much, and I won't be offended if you didn't watch it or if you switched it off halfway through. I completely understand. I'm going to tell you today about my mystery illness because I keep going on about it and nobody really knows, including me, what it's all about. So I thought, well, after the day that I had yesterday, it might make sense just to get it out there and let everybody know, and then that way it's out in the open, and any time I talk about it, you've got a rough idea of what I've been through. I might sound a bit bitter towards the NHS at points, and I don't mean to. The NHS is a fantastic service, and I don't know where our country would be without it. It's just that I've had some pretty bad experiences with them, and yeah, occasionally I do feel a bit bitter towards them, but I've also had some really good experience with them, and I wouldn't be here now without them, as would nobody probably. You know, we all do need them at some point, so please don't think that I'm dissing the NHS. I used to work for them. I was a nurse way back in a former life. That's what I did at university. I did nursing, and I was a theatre nurse for a while until I had kids. And I was planning to go back to it once the girls were older, but obviously being in the wheelchair now, it's a bit difficult. Right, time for Guess a Song from Random Lyrics. La 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 la. Yesterday's song was one of my least favourite Christmas songs, to be honest, but I was in that kind of mood, if you can tell. And it was 2,000 Miles by the Pretenders. The first lot of lyrics for today's song are, I'll check. When you land upon your head. Okay, quite tricky, I think. When you land upon your head. That's the first lot of lyrics. Stay tuned and I'll give you the second lot, which are a bit easier near the end of the video. If you've not watched my Vlogmases before, basically what I'm going on about is those are the lyrics to a specific Christmas song. Pop in the comments below what song you think it is and you could be in with winning a prize. Right, so way back in 2012, it was March 2012, everything was going fine with my life. I was working, I was only working part-time at that point because Jack was working down south, he was working down in Portsmouth at the time, and Brooke was 2, Abby was 7, so I was basically trying to work and look after them and look after old Stormy. He was the only dog that we had at the time, our old husky who's not with us anymore. And so I was working part-time at a sheriff court and my mum was watching the kids when I was at work. And everything was going absolutely grand. We were having a great time. I used to go down to stay with Jack in Portsmouth for a weekend every sort of 3 or 4 weeks. And Jack would come up every second week, I think. But it meant that we were getting time to ourselves. The kids were getting granny time. And it was just working really, really well. But then I started getting really tired and I didn't know why. One weekend in particular when I went down to see Jack, we went out and things as usual. We went out for a few drinks, we went out for meals, to the cinema, that sort of thing. But anytime we weren't out, I was sleeping. If we were just sitting watching the telly, I would fall asleep. We went for a run and I fell asleep in the car. And it just wasn't like me because I lived for these weekends with Jack. And he actually said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I don't know, I'm just really, really tired and I'm just not feeling right." There was nothing specific wrong, I just didn't feel right. And when I got home on the Sunday, I started getting really bad stomach pains. And I thought, oh, maybe I've got a bug and that's what all this has been about. But the tiredness had been going on for a few weeks. So anyway, on the Monday when I was at my work, I was in so much pain with my stomach. It was actually kind of at the side of my abdomen. It was my left hand side, not the right, and I already had my appendix out. So I knew it wasn't my appendix and I couldn't focus on anything. I was really in a lot of pain. And I had previously been to the doctor with the same pain and it had gone away, and the doctor had said, if it comes back really, really bad, go to the hospital. So I thought, right, that's what I'm going to do. So I went home from work and I said to my mum, "Are you okay to have the kids a bit longer? I need to go to the hospital." That's fine. So I went over to the hospital and they basically said, "Oh, it's really strange." But this time I was in so much pain. They gave me morphine and all the rest of it. And I had started being sick. And I just didn't feel right at all. So they admitted me and they thought that it might be a gynae problem. They thought it might be something to do with my ovaries. Maybe I had a cyst on my ovary or that sort of thing because of where the pain was and the type of pain that it was. It was actually like being in labour. It was that kind of pain, excruciating pain. So I was kept in the gynae ward, and then I saw the gynae consultant and they decided to give me an ultrasound, and my ovaries and everything looked fine. There didn't seem to be any problems. So I was then transferred to just a sort of general ward, and oh, hello Radha. And they organised some more tests. They went through the usual, is it constipation and all that sort of thing. But once I'd been to the loo, they were like, right, okay, the pain's still there, so it's not constipation. So they gave me all sorts of tests. I had an endoscopy, which is a camera down my throat. I had a colonoscopy, which was the camera up my backside. I had scans, I had x-rays, I had all sorts of blood tests and everything. And they just couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. But while I was there, the tiredness, the exhaustion got worse to the extent I wasn't even capable of giving myself a bed bath. Never mind going in the shower. I had to have the nurses help me to actually have a bed bath. And they got the psychiatrists in who spoke to me about a few different things, and they diagnosed me with chronic fatigue syndrome, which used to be known as ME. And they said that's what's causing the exhaustion, but that wouldn't cause the pain in the side. So I was on all sorts of really strong painkillers and getting all sorts of tests. This was going on over weeks and weeks and weeks. Meanwhile, my mum was staying in the house with the kids. Jack was still working down south. He was trying to get up as much as he could. And I was in the hospital, obviously worrying about the kids, but in so much pain, it was unbelievable. So even the painkillers weren't controlling it properly. So eventually the nausea started wearing off and I was managing to eat again, but my mouth was really sore and just really, really weird symptoms. So I was in the hospital for about 3 months overall, and eventually they said, look, we've done every test we can't figure out what it is. There's not really anything else we can do for you in the hospital. I think you're best to go home on the medication that you're on, and we'll just take it, from there. So I basically went home. Jack, by this point, had managed to get transferred back up to Scotland again, and basically life for the next couple of years was me in my bed. I was too exhausted to do anything. I could get to the toilet and back, and that was it. One of the other problems I started experiencing was severe dizziness. Anytime I was upright, I was so dizzy, I thought I was going to pass out. I was getting physiotherapy every couple of weeks. Physios would come to the house. They would try to get me up. The dizziness was so bad, though, that it was really causing them problems as much as me. They were doing the manoeuvre that, sort of moving your head to try to see if it was a problem with my inner ear, and they were trying to reset it, but that didn't do any good. And eventually the physio said, look, there's no point in us coming out because you're too ill to be upright, and they basically just gave me exercises that I could be doing in my bed. Now during this time I was able to eat again, but obviously I wasn't able to cook, and I was on steroids. So the combination of being on steroids, being in my bed, not being able to move, not eating properly, I was basically piling on the weight, and I ended up, I had been a size 12 when it all started, and I would say by the start of 2014 I was a size 20, and I had put on a lot of weight. I don't know exactly how much. I didn't want to know, to be honest, because I had so much on my mind with being ill, and I was so worried about the kids. I had so much mum guilt because I couldn't do anything with them, and if I didn't have my mum, I don't know what I would have done, because my mum and dad were amazing with the kids. They basically brought them up for that couple of years. Jack was at home, but he was working every minute that he could because I wasn't getting any wages anymore. Basically that's how my life was for the next couple of years. I was in my bed. The only time I was out my bed was for doctor's appointments, hospitals appointments. I had 2 Christmases during that time when I was in my bed, and basically they made up a bed for me in the living room, and Jack carried me down the stairs onto the bed in the living room to watch the girls opening their presents, and then I went straight back up again. So even Christmases were completely written off. 2014, I was starting to think, this is my life from now on, it's just not going to change. And around April, May time, I actually started getting worse again. The pain was so bad, I had basically weaned myself off of every single kind of painkiller they put me on, because none of them were really helping, and I didn't want to be on painkillers. Then I started getting really bad pains in my mouth again, and I started, every time I stood up for anything, I started physically being sick. I was unable to eat anything. I found it difficult to eat in the first place because my mouth was so sore, and then if I did manage to eat something, I was just bringing it straight back up. Then I had absolutely no appetite. I could feel my pulse going sky high as soon as I stood up, and I just went right downhill. So the doctor admitted me back into the hospital again. Now this was when things really started going wrong. The first time, that's something that I meant to say, the first time that I was in for the 3 months when my mouth was sore and I wasn't able to eat, they were feeding me through an NG tube that went up my nose and into my stomach. So this time when I was admitted, I was expecting them to do something similar, just basically to keep me nourished until I was able to eat again. However, they didn't. And I was telling them I had lost a lot of weight. I reckon I had lost a good 2 stone in a month purely by being sick, not being able to eat. I still wasn't active in any way, so it wasn't exercise, it wasn't anything like that. It was purely by not being able to eat and being sick. I had lost all that weight. And I told them that, and this still gets me every time. The consultant that I was under at the time looked me up and down. Now bear in mind, I had been a size sort of 20, so I had lost 2 stone, but I still looked big. I was still a big girl. So I was telling them that I had lost this weight, and he looked me up and down and said, "You're hardly going to fade away." And that has stayed with me forever, and it always will. I still remember the look on his face, the sort of smug grin on his face when he said, "You're hardly going to fade away." And I was actually stunned into silence at first. And then I said to him, "That's not the issue. What I'm meaning is my body's clearly needing nourishment. I'm not able to physically eat or drink anything. I think I'm needing to see a dietitian to see if there's anything that they can do to help me, and B, I think I'm needing NG fed again, getting the tube down so that my body is getting all the nutrients that it needs." And he basically just laughed at me. I don't actually think that they knew that not only did I have a nursing degree, but I was also a medical rep for a couple of years for a nutrition company who do the supplements that, you know, the sort of milky drinks that you take if you're not well. So I had worked for them for a while, so I knew a lot about nutrition and the importance of nutrition, but they obviously just thought I was a stupid wee girl. I found out a day later exactly what he thought when he said to me, "If you're looking for..." "If you're looking for attention, I'll take you to the psychiatric ward." That was his exact words. So basically he thought that either I was anorexic, as in I was anorexic in that I wasn't eating, but as in the psychological condition anorexia, where you don't want to eat and you refuse to eat. And that's what he offered to do, was to take me to the psychiatric ward. And I just remember having an absolute meltdown. I was screaming at the nurses, I was screaming at the doctors to get out and leave me alone. I remember phoning my mum, who was working at the time, she was doing her line dancing, and I said, "You need to come here because I am absolutely cracking up." So she had to stop her class and come over, and she couldn't believe what they'd said either. So we started a big complaint, obviously, and we got the sort of patient liaison person up. Bear with me, Rana started again, hold on. Sorry, I love these dogs to bits, but as soon as I start recording, they go nuts. It's like kids wanting attention. Shocking. Anyway, yeah, so we started the complaints process, and I actually said to them, "Look, while we're on the subject, what's happened to the dietitian?" I had asked on 3 or 4 occasions to be referred to the dietitian, and the patient liaison person said, "Oh, let me go and have a look at your notes." And she came back and she said that the dietitian had been, but rather than coming to talk to me, she had just written in my notes that because of my BMI, because I was obese, there was no need for dietitian input. Yeah. Again, I went mental. I said to the patient liaison, "Right, add that to the complaint, because that is not good enough. I know for a fact my body is needing nutrition." I can't physically eat. They just weren't getting it. Then I started to feel strange in that I was getting a sort of tingling and numbness in my face, and I had a tight band right around my body that felt like a big belt being squeezed. It was a really, really weird sensation, and I mentioned it to a couple of the nurses, I mentioned it to a couple of the doctors, and they all just went, all right, okay. And I thought, they're not listening to a word I'm saying. They've just got it in their head that I'm at it, that I'm looking for attention, that whatever. Molly and Clyde are now fighting over a toy. So I thought, this is completely pointless. Why am I even here? But I knew that I wasn't capable of going home. The physiotherapists were still coming in, shouting at me, you need to get up, you need to get up. And I was trying my hardest. I mean, when I went into the hospital that time, I was able to take a few steps. I was able to walk from my bed to the toilet at home. I had an ensuite. During the time that I was in this ward, the 4 or 5 days, I was getting weaker and weaker. I was able to just get from my bed onto a commode to go to the toilet, and the physios were shouting at me, you need to walk, you need to walk, and I did what I could. Eventually on the Saturday, the doctor came and said, look, there's absolutely nothing we can do for you, you're going to have to go home. And by this time I was thinking, good, because they were making me feel worse by making me feel that I had no right being there. They basically sent me home, and when I was trying to transfer from my bed to a wheelchair that day, I actually collapsed. My legs didn't hold me at all. The staff weren't interested. They discharged me without any physio input, without any kind of input whatsoever, no follow-ups, absolutely nothing. Just go home, there's nothing we can do for you. A few days later, I was thinking, there's definitely something not right. The tingling, the numbness was getting worse. The belt round my belly was getting worse. My legs were getting weaker and weaker. I wasn't able to physically get myself to the toilet anymore. I was having to get my mum to push me in a wheelchair. So eventually my mum said, look, I think we should pay for a private appointment for you. So they arranged for a private appointment for the Saturday at a hospital called Ross Hall in Glasgow. So by the time the Friday came, my mum came in and went, oh my God, look at you. The left side of my face was completely drooping like that. It looks like you've had a stroke. I said, I was thinking that as well, because I could feel that it was all drooping. I said, but I've not had a stroke because, again, I know all the signs and symptoms. I could hold both arms up, and I knew I hadn't had a stroke, but I knew there was something very, very wrong. So my mum got the doctor in, who basically said, it's just one of those things, maybe part of whatever your illness is. There's nothing we can do, it's not a stroke. Jack tried to help me down the stairs. I completely collapsed in on myself, and we realised that there was something majorly wrong. My legs were not holding me at all. So we went through to Ross Hall. They gave me an emergency CT scan just in case I had a stroke. And they said, the good news is you've not had a stroke. The bad news is you definitely need inpatient treatment. So I was refusing to go back to the hospital that I had been in before, which was Forth Valley Hospital. And so they admitted me to what was the Southern General Hospital in Glasgow. It's now changed. It's now the Queen Elizabeth, I think. And they admitted me to the neurology ward because my face was still drooping. My mouth was in so much pain, my fingers were tingling, my feet were really sore. Again, no reason for it, just really sore. And they were starting to do tests, but within a couple of days I started having funny, it was like basically my whole body was spasming. It was like a spasm. My whole body would go into spasm, my arms would come up, and I would be like that, and I would have no control over it. Each spasm would last maybe about 30 seconds and then stop, and then a few minutes later it would happen again, and then I could maybe go a couple of hours without having any. And it was becoming really painful. That hospital were amazing. The neurologist, the consultant were unbelievable, and I'm still under that consultant now, Dr. Baird, and she is absolutely amazing. Yeah, they did every kind of test that they could under the sun to try to figure out what was wrong with me. They took muscle samples, they took skin samples, they sent them to all over the country. They did an EEG attaching the electrodes to my head. They did everything and couldn't figure out what was causing it. However, what they did do pretty soon was they started me with the NG feeding. During all this time, all I really remember is pain. I remember pain from the spasms. I remember pain from my feet. My feet were so sore. I was screaming the place down. The abdominal pain was still there, but I could hardly feel that because the pain in my feet was so bad. And I kept telling my mum, stop touching my feet. She's like, there's nobody near your feet. And I felt like I was standing in the snow in my bare feet. You know, that way that your feet get so cold that it's like your feet have got a headache. It was that kind of pain. Oh, and then it would go from that to being a burning pain. It was absolutely horrible. The seizures started getting worse. My whole body was going, and then eventually I was sort of not losing consciousness because I was awake and I was responding to people, but I was remembering nothing about it when I came out of it. It was about a month that all that was really going on. Then once the NG feeding really got into my system, I started feeling a bit stronger, a bit better, and I actually started not feeling ill. I remember the day that my mum came in and went, oh, you're looking not bad. And I went, Mum, I don't feel ill anymore. My body's still exhausted, but I don't feel ill. And it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. Fast forward a little bit. I started building my strength up. The physios started helping me, but we quickly realised that all of the tingling, the numbness and everything was basically nerve damage because I had been malnourished. I was diagnosed with malnutrition neuropathy, which basically meant that my nerves were permanently damaged because of malnutrition. So all those times that I was saying to the doctor, I need feeding, and they were saying, you're not going to fade away. And all the times that I was begging to see a dietitian and they didn't even talk to me before they said, she doesn't need a dietitian input, I was right. And my nerves are never going to be the same again. That was then the start of a long road of rehab for me. I had very little sensation in my hands. I couldn't write. Even holding a pen, I had to have a thick pen and I had it like that. So I had occupational therapy input, I had physiotherapy input. My legs couldn't hold me at all. By this point I had no sensation in my legs at all from just almost the top of my thigh, and it's still the same. I've got no sensation. I can move my legs, but I've got no sensation. The only sensation that I get is pain from my feet. So I had a lot of really good input from the physios and the occupational therapists in Glasgow. And then it got to the stage that I didn't need the NG feeding anymore. I was managing to eat small amounts and I was getting the nutritional supplements that I used to sell. Quite ironic, really. And then the bombshell was, because that hospital was out with my postcode area, I couldn't have my rehab there. I was going to have to go back to Falkirk to get my rehab. It was a community hospital, so I went there. That was the September. I was basically in there until the January 2015, so it was just over 3 months. That was a nightmare in itself because it was a rehabilitation ward, so it was all old people. Not that there's anything wrong with old people, don't get me wrong, I'm getting there myself, but there was nobody that I could relate to in there. There was nobody to talk to, really. There was a lot of people with dementia. So the neurologist that I was under there discovered that not only could I not feel like my legs and my feet, but when they moved my foot or my toe a certain way, I had no idea that they were even touching it, let alone moving it. A bit like, do you ever watch like the Super Vet, where he puts the dog's paw the wrong way and the dog doesn't realise and doesn't try to correct it? That's basically what he was saying was happening with me. And he said this was down to something called subacute combined degeneration of the spinal cord. So as well as having the nerve damage, I also had degeneration in my spinal cord, which was a result of a lack of vitamin B12. Now, when I was originally admitted way back in March 2012 and I was having the exhaustion, I did ask them to test me for something called pernicious anemia, and that's not anemia which is where you're lacking in iron. Pernicious anemia is where you're lacking in vitamin B12, and no matter how much of it you take in orally, your body just can't absorb it. You basically need injections. Usually every 12 weeks you get an injection of vitamin B12. But again, what did I know? Don't tell us how to do our job. They never ever did test me for it. So there we were, 2 years down the line before they realised that I had pernicious anemia, and they actually started giving me the B12 injections, and by that time my spinal cord had been damaged. And that was the time that I was told that I might be able to take a few steps here and there, but I'll probably never actually walk again properly. Now this was 2014 that I was told this, so I had just turned 39 when they told me that I probably wouldn't walk again. Yes, that was difficult to cope with, but all I kept thinking was, I'm not in my bed anymore. I'm okay, I might be in a wheelchair, but I'm going to have a life back. The kids are going to have their mum back. And at the time, I didn't care. I just wanted to be home. I wanted to be strong enough to be home. I worked really so hard in physio, and eventually January 2015 I got home. After having a short stay at home over Christmas, I got home Christmas Eve and I went back in on Boxing Day. And because I had managed not too bad, they said, right, okay, let's get the ball rolling, getting you discharged. I didn't have the services that I needed, but I wasn't caring because I had Jack, I had my mum and dad, and I was going to work it out whatever way I needed to. And we did. We did. So that was basically the start of my recovery. And ever since then, touch wood, I've not had to be admitted to the hospital. I do still get spells where I'm really not well. I get the abdominal pain, I get the dizziness, I get the sore mouth, but I've never had to be admitted to hospital. The exhaustion is still there pretty much all the time, but most of the time I can cope with it. There's just the odd day now and again that it floors me, like the other week when I was trying to do my Vlogmas and I was in my bed. That does happen, and that's the main reason why I don't work now, because I could be okay one day and the next day I could be unable to get out of my bed. So that is my illness. We have still never got to the bottom of what actually has caused it, what the actual illness is. We do know that I'm in the wheelchair because of malnutrition, neuropathy and subacute combined degeneration of the spinal cord, which means when I'm strong, on strong days, I can pull myself up, I can transfer, no problem. I can pull myself up and I can take a couple of steps occasionally. But when I'm doing that, it's bizarre. It's like being floating in midair because I can't feel where my legs are. I've got no idea where my feet are. So when I'm doing that, I need to physically look down to see where I'm putting my feet. Now, the reason I was at the hospital yesterday was to be tested for something called porphyria, which is a build-up of porphyrins or toxins in your system, which causes pretty much all of the symptoms that I had. And they did test for it when I was in Forth Valley the first time, but my neurologist thinks that they had tested me incorrectly. The thing with porphyria is the porphyrins in your urine, it's a urine test and a blood test, but the porphyrins in the urine get broken down so quickly by sunlight that unless it's done completely in the dark and the sample is wrapped in foil and put in a dark bag and then tested very, very quickly, it's unlikely to be picked up. So my neurologist wanted me to be admitted as a day case to have this tested properly to find out if it was that. I'm convinced that it is, but I'm also, after yesterday, convinced that it's going to come back negative because they didn't even attempt to do it in the dark, like I said in yesterday's video, which was ridiculous considering it was a neurology ward. And the doctor actually said to me, this is the way I always do it and I've never had any problems. But he didn't tell me how many of the tests that he'd done ever came back positive. I'm guessing pretty much none. So that's where we're at. Even if I do get the diagnosis of it, there's no treatment as such. It's just looking out for what exacerbates it and trying to stop the flare-ups, stop the attacks from happening, basically. I am now 43. I am up and about most days. I'm in a wheelchair, but it's not stopping me. I go out with Jack and the kids. Most places I've got my Rio Firefly, which is my motorised attachment for my wheelchair that I can get to the beach with them. I go up the hills with them. I go camping with them. And I've just learned that I can still swim. And I am not going to let this illness define who I am. I am me again, just me in a wheelchair. And yeah, it's frustrating that there's a lot of things that I can't do, but I'm always finding ways of adapting. Adapt and overcome, that's my new motto, or that's all our mottos since this happened to me. Adapt and overcome. If there's something I really want to do, I'm going to look for a way and I'm going to find a way to do it. So yeah, it's been a long, hard slog for the last 6 years. I don't know how on earth Jack has stuck by me through it all. The kids have been amazing. Poor Brooke, she can't remember me being normal. She saw a photo of me when I was younger and in one of my shows, and she said to my mum, "Look, Mum's standing without nurses." She can't remember me ever being able to walk. She was only 2 when it all started. Abby can remember more of me before it, and I think it affects her a little bit more. But like I said, they've got the young carers who are fantastic and they're doing a lot to help them. I do have a lot of mum guilt, but that's a different video. That's certainly not for this video, which has been going on forever, and I do apologise. But yeah, I just wanted to let you know that that's why I'm in a wheelchair. That's why it's unlikely that I'm ever going to walk again. But that's why I'm as positive as I can be every single day, because I didn't have a life for so long. I thought my life was going to be in my bed. I thought I was never going to have a normal life again with my kids and my husband. My mum and dad, I can't thank them enough. I can't thank Jack enough, everything. I will say that we did go through the complaints process with Forth Valley Hospital. We did get a written apology from them. We did try to go down the legal route to try to get some sort of compensation, because it was medical negligence as far as I was concerned. I was telling them that I was malnourished, that I needed treatment, and they refused to give me it. Unfortunately, no legal company would take it on because I don't have a formal diagnosis, and they know that the opposition would just turn around and say, "You don't know for certain that it's malnutrition that's caused it. It could be whatever the illness is. She could have been going to end up like this, whether she had malnutrition or not." So nobody would take me on. So yeah, I have tried going down that route, and I've moved on now. Even if I did get the diagnosis of porphyria now, which doesn't result in nerve damage and being in a wheelchair, I'm now out of time, because you only have 3 years to make the claim. So I've moved on from that now. I realised that I'm just going to have to live with it. I'm not going to get any kind of compensation. I'm now getting the benefits that I need, and Jack just has to work every hour God sends, basically, to try to give the kids the kind of life that we want them to have. So I am really going to stop rambling now. I hope you've managed to stick with me to the end of this, and I'm sorry if I've depressed anyone. Oh, guess a song from Random Lyrics, fa la 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 la. Right, so your next line, which is much easier, is "Up and rock and rolling with the rest." That's what I wish I could do this Christmas. I wish I could be up and rock and rolling with the rest. I can't be rolling with the rest. I can roll in my wheelchair. So yeah, that's the second line. Again, thank you so much for sticking by me through this video, through yesterday's video. I know not all my Vlogmases have been great, but I'm still loving all the comments that you're leaving. Please, please, please keep leaving me comments. If you've not already subscribed, please do. And I'll try to make tomorrow a much cheerier vlog. Thanks so much, everybody. I'll see you later. Bye! We wish you a Merry Vlogmas. We wish you a Merry Vlogmas. We wish you a Merry Vlogmas and a Happy New Year.